When you truly understand the power you stand on, you stop negotiating with circumstances. You stop asking permission from situations that were never meant to have authority over you. Many of us are living as if we're standing next to power, close to power, or hoping power will someday arrive. But today, right now, is about awakening to the truth that power has already been placed under your feet. And when you stand on it, not only does your posture change, your entire life does. Recognizing the power already entrusted to you begins with the profound realization that you are not waiting to be empowered, you arrived empowered. So many people spend years seeking validation, approval, and confirmation from the outside because they have not yet fully awakened to the internal deposit of power that was placed within them before they ever faced a single challenge, assignment, or season of elevation. When a person does not recognize this, they live reactively, responding to life rather than shaping it. But when the truth becomes evident, when you truly understand that the power is already in your possession, everything changes. Your decisions become bolder. Your confidence becomes grounded, and your actions begin to align not with fear, but with destiny. This recognition is not just intellectual, it is experiential. Power begins to reveal itself not in the absence of struggle, but often in the midst of it. The challenges we face are not signs that we lack power, but rather opportunities to discover its depth. Think of a seed. Within it is the genetic blueprint of an entire tree. But until it is placed in the soil, under pressure, and within the tension of darkness, its potential lies dormant. In the same way, life will often put us in circumstances that seem restrictive or overwhelming, but those are the places where the power within is activated. Recognizing the power entrusted to you begins with understanding that what is in you is greater than what is happening around you. Power doesn't wait for ideal conditions, it manifests through them. For many, the challenge is not that they lack power, but that they have been conditioned to underlive. Voices, backgrounds, past failures, comparison, and insecurity can turn into scripts that tell us we are waiting to qualify. But empowerment is not something we earn, it is something we discover. And discovery requires attention. Too many people have their focus on the external, what they don't have, what they lack, what hasn't arrived yet. Meanwhile, the most life-changing revelation is closer than their next breath. Power was placed within them for the purpose they were created for. Once you recognize it, you stop searching for what you already possess. Recognizing your power also means acknowledging that you were created with intentionality. Nothing about you, your story, your wiring, your giftings, your voice, your perspective, your history is random. Power is not only about strength, it is about design. When a power source is matched to its purpose, there is alignment. A microphone has no power underwater. A boat engine is pointless on land. Power functions best where it was intended. Likewise, your power is connected to your divine assignment. Many people feel powerless not because they are weak, but because they are misaligned. They are trying to operate in spaces, relationships, careers, and environments that were never meant to house the power within them. The more a person understands their design, the more they understand their power. Recognition also requires identity. Power without identity is like wealth without access. You may have it, but you cannot use it. When people don't know who they are, they begin to adopt the identity that circumstances, people, or past pain give them. But when you understand who you truly are, you stop accepting labels that don't align with truth. You realize that insecurity, doubt, and fear are not reflections of your capacity, but symptoms of a mind that has not yet fully embraced its own inheritance. Identity is the foundation that power stands on. The moment a person realizes their true identity, their inner power begins to surface. Confidence then becomes not arrogance, but alignment. Recognizing your power also means understanding that the battles you have survived are proof of your existing strength. The very fact that you are still standing means that something within you refused to collapse. Even the seasons where you felt weak where you cried, struggled, questioned, or barely made it through were not evidence of the absence of power, but the endurance of it. Many people underestimate themselves because they judge their worth by their wounds rather than by their resilience. But scars don't mean defeat, they mean survival. If you are still here, still growing, still learning, still stretching, then your power has already been at work. Recognition turns survival into intention. This recognition also shifts perspective. Instead of seeing obstacles as blockades, you begin to see them as indicators of potential. People without power are intimidated by problems, but people who recognize power see them as invitations to rise. The size of the opposition often reflects the size of the opportunity. When David faced Goliath, he did not see a threat, he saw proof that he was built for more. The difference was not in the battlefield, it was in the mindset. People who recognize their power make decisions from faith rather than from fear. They walk into rooms with expectation rather than intimidation. They speak differently, think differently, move differently, and eventually live differently. Recognizing your power also requires shifting the inner dialogue. Many people are held hostage not by exterior forces, but by internal narratives. If you wake up every morning telling yourself you are behind, unqualified, unprepared, or unwanted, then even with power, you will remain stuck. Power responds to belief. A person who does not believe in their power will not activate it. So recognition requires replacing limiting language with truth. Instead of I can't, it becomes I can. Instead of I'm not enough, it becomes I am already equipped. Instead of I'm waiting for something to change, it becomes change is already within me. The shift in language is not empty positivity, it is alignment with what was true all along. Another critical element of recognizing entrusted power is understanding that power doesn't always feel powerful. Sometimes power feels like uncertainty, stretching, obedience, or discomfort. A seed sprouting underground does not feel strong, it feels pressure. Muscles growing don't feel calm, they feel sore. Purpose pulling you forward doesn't feel easy, it feels demanding. Many people misinterpret the feeling of growth as the absence of power, when in reality, they are in the middle of activation. The discomfort of development is not an indicator of weakness. It is evidence that something within is becoming stronger. Recognizing your power also means shifting from dependence to partnership. You don't wait for life to hand you permission, you begin to co-create with purpose. You stop praying for doors to open and start preparing to walk through them. You stop asking for opportunities and begin building for them. Empowerment is not passive, it is participatory. When you believe in the power given to you, you move differently because you know that you are not relying solely on your own effort. There is something backing you, fueling you, and guiding you. Finally, recognizing your power transforms how you show up in the world. When you know what you carry, you no longer shrink to make others comfortable. You stop apologizing for your calling. You stop dimming your light to match the room. You show up fully, authentically, boldly, and unapologetically, not because you are better than others, but because you are finally aligned with who you were created to be. And when you do, life begins to shift. Opportunities recognize confidence. People respond to certainty. Doors react to authority. And destiny opens to those who realize they already have everything they need to step into the future prepared for them. You are not becoming powerful. You are discovering the power that was already there. Shifting your posture from surviving to standing is a transformational awakening that happens not just in your circumstances, but within your mindset, identity, and spirit. Many people live in survival mode for so long that it becomes their normal. They become accustomed to holding their breath emotionally, spiritually, mentally, and financially. Survival is not simply a condition, it is a posture. It causes a person to approach life with caution rather than confidence, defense rather than intention, and limitation rather than expectation. When you shift from surviving to standing, you are not just changing what you do, you are changing how you exist in the world. Survival posture is the position life forces you into when you are fighting to make it through. It is a posture shaped by challenge, setbacks, loss, and seasons of uncertainty. And there is nothing wrong with survival. In fact, survival is often the first proof of your strength. To survive means you endured, you didn't break, you didn't quit. You made it through something that could have left you stuck or defeated. But survival is not the destination, it is the passageway. Too many people set up permanent residence in a season that was meant to be temporary. They came out of the battle, but kept the posture of the battlefield. They left the storm, but the storm didn't leave them. Their thinking, expectations, responses, and outlook still reflect struggle, even when struggle is no longer their reality. Standing is different. Standing is not just being on your feet. It is being rooted, grounded, and intentional. Standing is the posture of someone who recognizes that they have authority, purpose, and power. Standing means you are not just reacting to life, you are engaging with life from a place of identity and direction. Surviving is about making it. Standing is about claiming it. Surviving is about getting through. Standing is about stepping into. They are not the same posture, and they do not produce the same outcomes. One of the biggest shifts from surviving to standing is the change in expectation. People in survival mode expect things to go wrong. They are always preparing for the next hit, the next loss, the next disappointment. The brain adapts to constant pressure by normalizing struggle. Over time, the person begins to assume that breakthrough is rare, joy is temporary, and blessings always come with a catch. When your expectation is shaped by survival, you stop dreaming big because you don't want to feel the pain of unmet hope. You stop taking risks because losing seems more likely than winning. You shrink your life to avoid deeper wounds. But standing reverses that mentality. Standing restores expectation. Standing says, what is ahead of me is greater than what is behind me. Standing says, I am not waiting for something bad to happen, I am preparing for something good. Another major difference is how a person interprets opposition in survival mode. Opposition feels like threat, something that might take you out, set you back, or drain the little you have left. But when you are standing, opposition becomes confirmation. It becomes a sign that you are advancing, growing, or stepping into something significant. Standing gives you the perspective to see that resistance often increases when destiny is near. The enemy doesn't attack what is not valuable. The feelings of pressure do not mean you are unqualified, they mean you are positioned. Standing turns stress into strategy. It allows you to interpret challenges not as signs of weakness, but as invitations to activate the strength within you. Shifting from surviving to standing also affects your voice. In survival mode, people speak cautiously. They apologize for existing, minimize their dreams, or talk small because life has taught them not to expect much. They become quiet in spaces where they were meant to speak with authority. But when someone begins to stand, their voice changes. They speak with clarity instead of fear. They speak with conviction instead of hesitation. Their words begin to align with their identity, not their insecurity. Power requires a voice, and standing gives you permission to use it. Another shift takes place in decision making. Survivors make choices based on what hurts the least. They make short-term decisions because they are focused on immediate safety rather than long-term purpose. They choose what is familiar, even if the familiar is unhealthy, because survival trains you to stay where you feel protected. But standing shifts the lens. Standing allows you to make decisions based on destiny, not damage. Instead of asking, what is the safest choice? A person begins asking, what is the right choice for who I'm becoming? Standing introduces wisdom, clarity, and intentionality. It causes you to make decisions from vision rather than from fear. A person who shifts into standing also sees themselves differently. Survival mode often produces an identity that is shaped by wounds, mistakes, failures, and what didn't work. The focus becomes what was lost instead of what was learned. Standing, however, comes from identity. Not the identity defined by circumstances, but the identity defined by purpose, calling, and divine intention. When you stand, you recognize that your story is bigger than your struggle. You see yourself not as the one who barely made it, but as the one who emerged with strength, wisdom, and authority. You begin to carry yourself differently, not with arrogance, but with alignment. Standing also produces posture in the spirit. Survival makes people pray from desperation. They ask for rescue. They cry for relief. And those prayers are valid. There are seasons where all you can pray is, Lord, help me get through this. But when you stand, your prayer life matures. You no longer pray as someone trying to avoid defeat. You pray as someone who knows victory is already within reach. You stop praying only for survival and start praying strategy, vision, and clarity. You begin speaking to the mountains instead of merely describing them. Your faith becomes active instead of defensive. Another critical element of shifting from surviving to standing is learning to live again. Survival can steal joy. It can steal creativity. It can steal spontaneity and excitement. When you're in survival mode, you may not even realize how much of yourself has shut down just to cope. You stop dreaming, laughing deeply, or hoping freely. Standing restores the parts of you that survival muted. It allows joy to re-enter. It reignites imagination. It reminds you that you were not created just to exist, you were created to live. When you shift from survival to standing, relationships also change. Survivors often attract people who reinforce their limitations because their circle reflects their mindset. But once you begin standing, old circles may no longer fit. Standing requires community that supports growth. It requires voices that speak life, not fear. It requires people who see your potential, not just your past. Sometimes when a person starts standing, others get uncomfortable, not because of who you are becoming, but because your growth exposes their stagnation. And that's okay. Standing is not about pleasing everyone. It is about aligning with purpose. One of the most powerful aspects of shifting from surviving to standing is the return of ownership. Survivors feel like life is happening to them. Standers feel like life is happening through them. Survivors endure their story. Standers participate in writing it. Survivors react. Standers initiate. Survivors hope to make it out alive. Standers expect to see victory. The truth is, most people have the strength to stand long before they realize they can. The shift is not about gaining new power. It is about activating the power that was repressed by survival. Once a person begins to stand, even if their circumstances have not yet changed, everything inside them starts to change. They walk differently, they speak differently, they believe differently, and eventually their outer world begins to reshape itself around their inner transformation. Surviving was necessary, but standing is your next level. You were never meant to spend your life fighting to stay afloat. You were meant to rise, to ground yourself, to take authority, to plant your feet, and to live from a posture of purpose rather than fear. Standing is not the end of your journey. It's the moment you finally start walking in your true identity. Authority increases when identity becomes clear, because authority is not first about external power. It is about internal conviction. Many people try to operate in authority without ever understanding who they truly are. They attempt to speak with confidence, make bold decisions, or step into purpose while still battling the uncertainty of their own identity. When identity is unclear, authority becomes unstable. But when identity is discovered, embraced, and rooted, authority becomes natural, not forced, Not performed, not borrowed, but lived. Identity clarity is not just knowing your name, personality traits, or social roles. It is knowing the truth of who you were created to be, not based on experience, labels, wounds, or comparison, but based on divine intention. Identity is purpose-defined existence. It is the internal recognition that you were formed with intentionality, assigned for significance, and equipped for impact. When a person knows who they are, their life no longer bends according to external pressure. They become anchored. Storms may shake them, circumstances may test them, but their foundation does not move. One of the greatest challenges in life is that identity is often attacked before authority ever emerges. You can see this pattern in life. Before major moments of calling, elevation, or breakthrough, identity comes under fire. People may question who you are. Situations may contradict who you are. Even your own mind may struggle to believe who you are. And this long battle is because identity is the soil from which authority grows. If the enemy can confuse your identity, he can limit your authority. If he can silence who you believe you are, he can silence what you do. Authority without identity is like a sword in the hands of someone who doesn't believe they deserve to hold it. Identity becomes clear when the voice of truth becomes louder than the voices of insecurity, fear, comparison, or past pain. Many people have lived so long under the weight of others' expectations that they don't know how to hear their own. They have been defined by what they've gone through rather than who they are. When identity is unclear, decisions become based on survival rather than clarity. People then choose paths that don't match their purpose, relationships that don't align with their value, and lifestyles that don't reflect their calling. Clarity breaks that cycle. When you know who you are, choices become easier. You don't waste time trying to be everything to everyone. You don't beg for acceptance from the wrong people. You don't chase validation that was never needed. Identity gives direction. It filters opportunities. It sets boundaries. It prevents compromise. People without a strong sense of self often live reactive lives, responding to whatever is loudest, immediate, or emotionally triggering. But when identity becomes clear, your life becomes intentional. You move from reaction to leadership, from confusion to certainty, from wandering to assignment. Authority grows from this place. Authority is not volume, it is presence. You can speak softly and still carry authority if you are rooted in identity. Conversely, you can speak loudly and still lack impact if insecurity is behind your voice. Authority is the spiritual, emotional, and mental force that comes from security. It is the weight of someone who stands, not someone who doubts. People respond differently to someone who knows who they are. Opportunities open differently. Rooms react differently. Environments adjust. And it is not because of arrogance, it is because authenticity has a vibration that cannot be ignored. One of the signs that identity has become clear is that a person stops needing others to confirm what they already know. They welcome encouragement, but they no longer require approval. They listen to counsel, but they no longer depend on validation. Their worth is no longer outsourced. They no longer wait to be chosen. They choose themselves because they recognize they were already chosen by purpose. This internal shift produces external authority. When you stop seeking permission, you start walking in power. Identity clarity also removes the need to compete. Competition is the result of comparison, and comparison is the result of insecurity. When you know who you are, you no longer feel threatened by who someone else is. You don't need their spotlight, their position, their influence, or their success. You understand that your assignment cannot be taken because it was tailored for you. Identity produces confidence, and confidence eliminates comparison. Without comparison, energy is freed, creativity increases, focus sharpens, authority expands, because nothing drains it. Another transformative aspect is that clarity brings alignment between internal and external life. When identity is unclear, A person may portray one thing on the outside while feeling like something else on the inside. They perform a version of themselves they believe will be accepted, praised, or safe. But that performance is exhausting. It drains authority because it disconnects the person from authenticity. You cannot operate fully in what you fake. But when identity is clear, the inner and outer person become the same. That unity creates power. The scripture says a house divided against itself cannot stand, and that includes the house within. Authority flows when the internal world agrees with itself. Identity also gives a person permission to stop apologizing for their calling. Many people tone down their gifts, intelligence, voice, creativity, leadership, or anointing because it made others uncomfortable. They shrink to fit into rooms they were meant to lead. They dim because others are not ready for the brightness. But identity clarity removes the apology. You stop shrinking and start standing. And when you stand fully, your authority increases, not just for you, but for others who were waiting for a model of what bold authenticity looks like. This is why identity and authority are communal, not just personal. When someone walks in clarity, it awakens courage in others. People see what's possible. They see what empowered authenticity looks like. One person standing in identity can shift environments, families, teams, communities, and generations. Authority is not only about personal impact, it is about collective transformation. When identity rises in one, faith rises in many. Identity also produces authority because it eliminates unnecessary battles. When you don't know who you are, you feel the need to fight every criticism, every opinion, every rumor, every misunderstanding. You feel responsible for defending yourself to people who were never meant to define you. But when identity is clear, you realize not every fight is your fight. You learn to conserve energy. You understand that destiny is not proven by debate, it is proven by results. Authority is strengthened when your focus is not scattered across conflicts that don't matter. In addition, identity gives resilience. A person who knows who they are can be knocked down but not removed. Authority deepens through struggle because identity grounds endurance. When identity is secure, failure becomes feedback, not definition. Delay becomes development, not denial. Setbacks become strategy training, not identity shattering. You may bend, but you don't break. Authority increases because you recognize that power is not shown in how perfect the journey is, but in how persistent you become. Identity also restores internal peace. People who don't know who they are live in constant conflict, trying to live up to expectations, trying to fit into others' visions, trying to meet standards that were never theirs. But when identity becomes clear, the internal noise quiets, peace returns. And peace is one of the greatest sources of authority. People listen differently to someone who speaks from rest. Their decisions are different. Their presence is different. They carry a weight that cannot be manufactured. It comes from alignment. Ultimately, authority increases when identity becomes clear, because authority is not granted externally, it is recognized internally. The world does not give you authority, it confirms what you already knew. When a person knows who they are, they begin to move, think, speak, and lead differently. Their life stops being shaped by insecurity and starts being shaped by assignment. And authority naturally expands because the world responds to clarity. There comes a moment in every life when survival is no longer enough, when living beneath our power becomes too costly, and when who we were created to be demands to step forward. Standing on power is not just about confidence, it is about awakening. It is the realization that the strength we've been praying for, searching for, and waiting for has already been placed within us. We are not empty, we are not unequipped, we are not without support. We are already carrying the very thing needed to walk into destiny. When we recognize the power entrusted to us, everything shifts. We stop negotiating with fear. We stop waiting for permission from environments that were never meant to define us. We start living as though heaven already backed what we were created to do. But awakening to power is only the beginning, because we must also change our posture. Many have survived seasons that should have destroyed them, but the residue of survival has kept them from standing. Standing is not just rising to your feet. It is rising in identity, in boldness, in clarity, in vision. It is moving from "I hope I make it" to "I was built for this." When posture changes, mindset changes. And when mindset changes, life follows. You stop reacting to life and start shaping it. You stop expecting struggle and start expecting victory. You stop living from wounds and start living from assignment. And the foundation of all authority is identity. Because the moment you realize who you truly are, your authority begins to expand. Confidence deepens. Fear loses its grip. Decisions become intentional. You stop shrinking to fit places you were always meant to influence. You stop apologizing for what God designed. You stop chasing acceptance and begin walking in alignment. Identity clarifies direction, directs action, and unlocks authority. A person secure in who they are becomes unstoppable, not because they have no challenges, but because challenges no longer dictate their worth or their direction. So today, this is not just a speech, it is a call. A call to activate what was dormant. A call to stand in what was already given. A call to remember that power was not something you were meant to reach for. It is something you were meant to stand on. Right now. Here. Today. Walk out of survival. Step into standing. Live in identity. Because the world is not waiting for the perfect you. It is waiting for the aligned you. The awake you. The you who knows you carry power. Walks in that power. And refuses to let anything beneath destiny define your life. This is your moment. Stand on power and watch everything change.